is such an important part of this process of discovering how to express and manifest manhood properly.
Yeah, really, and I think particularly because, and this is one reason I love my wife, is that she'll happa, hello, puppy. Um, this is a wonderful moment of masculinity, by the way. I'm appreciating it a lot. She will happily call me out, and that's one of the reasons I knew I could marry her, because I can think I've got everything under control, and I like having things under control. She will just let me know, nope, you're doing that like crap, or you're acting ridiculously just now. And I was like, what? I thought, but okay. But we need that. You're right. I mean, I'm with you on that, even though I don't like it in the moment.
You know, this is a little bit of maybe a sideways turn. I think one of the big ways that the potential for improvement in men in our culture manifests is in our romantic relationships. I've heard from many women over the years, they have this thing where they're like, are there any like men around? Because every relationship I get into, I feel like I'm raising a child. So this is a very interesting feedback from the female gendered creatures of our species. And what's that all about? Like, what do you think that's about?
I think it's about the same thing we're talking about, that a lot of times men are encouraged socially to kind of act immature. Now, it is fun to act immature sometimes, but if you're doing it all the time in an intimate relationship, that means that like there's a level of like responsibility you haven't accepted, or something like that. So that's one angle, is like actually men have a lot of trouble expressing emotions like we've been talking about, and therefore because they don't know what they're feeling, they might act out in certain ways, and it feels like, oh, I'm raising a child. So I think that's one thing that they might be talking about. But I also think that men often are not as not responsible. They're not as good at certain societal things. And, I don't want to generalize too much, but it just seems to be that so many of the men I hang around, like all of our wives or partners will criticize the same thing, which is like, we can't find things when we're, we can't find like the ketchup or something like that in the refrigerator or whatever. And even though it's right in front of us. And yeah, like my wife is better at thinking of like ways to prepare our son for preschool and stuff like that. Like she thinks of everything, and she thinks of the doctor's appointments. I could do it. It takes more brain power. It's not how I'm oriented. And I think she might say that I'm, she feels like she has to drag me along like I'm a kid in that way. And I almost wonder, I don't know if it's biological or cultural or something, but that seems to be very common, at least in my group of people that I hang out with. Do you relate to that?
Yeah, my good. I just thought of like, the sheet that goes on top of the mattress that has the elastic on it.
Oh yeah.
Like, you can't just fold those. You can't fold these things. You need to, like, the two of you need to like put your finger into where the corners are, put the corners together, and then because it's like a rounded elasticy thing, you can't just fold it, because once you fold it just like a regular sheet, it's all wrinkled and effed up, and then you put it in the drawer, and then my wife be like, that's not how you fold sheets. What's wrong with you? Isn't it obvious? I'm like, it's got elastic, but it's a sheet. So you fold it like a sheet, then you move on to like, writing essays and making videos. And she's like, no. So there's a level of, I think, domestication that is entailed.
Wait, she knows how to fold? a sheet that has the wrinkled corners?
Yeah,
I thought that was impossible, and no human knows how to do that.
dude, no. And this, I mean, this issue overlaps with just differences, general differences in men and women from a very general perspective, but it has probably a lot to do with trait conscientiousness, right, and orderliness. She beats me in both categories because we both took the 5 aspect scale, you know, psychological
Mhm.
personality profile test. So I don't know, but this thing of domestication relates to the over civilization of guys, which also results in their bad behavior. Because if the wild man's not integrated, savage man comes out. And in our culture, he doesn't always come out as like obviously savage, like getting drunk and getting into fistfights at the bar or slapping the wife. He usually comes out in our culture of nice guys in the form of like, oh yeah, sure, honey, I'll do that. But I'm gonna be passive aggressive and nasty and just drag my feet the entire time because you're oppressing me. Or the guy would be like, oh yeah, sure, honey. Yeah, no, absolutely. Let's have that baby shower over here. I'll wear my purple shirt from Bonobos. It'll be really nice. And then he just like dashes into the corner and is like looking at porn, you know? It's you know, he's like, oh sure, honey, no, I'm just working late tonight. And he has an affair, or he's like, oh yeah, sure, honey, I'm just gonna stay here another hour with the boys. And then he's like smoking all this weed with his boys in the garage on the side. Is like, these are more the savage traits of guys in our culture, you know.
Yeah, I was gonna say that this guy is very troubled. He's either not in the right relationship or he doesn't know how to communicate.
There is no right relationship for him until he stops being a nice guy and integrates his psyche, both wild and the civilized side. Otherwise, he's going to be like a domesticated little yes man whelp, pushover nice guy who's secretly harboring all this passive aggression and resentment.